What makes the difference between what worked and what didn't is two key things. The first one is standardization of processes. So my lesson was make sure you standardize all your chart of accounts, all your reporting KPIs from day one. And then the second thing would be having clear ownership. So someone will own the integration, someone will own the reporting, and a third person is going to own the cash. So when that's unclear, I guess the trust in the numbers will disappear fast. And then management, the people who obviously are running the roll-up, won't have the right information to run their businesses and scale at the pace that they want.
Welcome to the RolyPoly. Today, I'm joined by Pavleta Pavlova, founder of PPHF, the go-to fractional CFO for roll-ups. Pavleta works with fast-paced acquirers across Europe and the US. She's grown her consultancy from 1 client to 10 in under a year. We talk about why finance is a real bottleneck in roll-ups, the most expensive mistakes she's seen operators make repeatedly, and why integration doesn't start on day one. It starts 30 days before. Let's get into it. Pavleta, thank you for joining me. I came across you through a post from Alex at Rollup Europe. He called you the go-to fractional CFO for rollups. So I knew I had to get you on. But before we dive in, could you tell us a little bit about your background and why you chose to specialize in rollups?
Yeah, of course. Thank you for having me. I'm a professional accountant. I work in finance for the past, I would say, 12 years. And a couple of years ago, I actually started working for 3Codes, where Alex happened to be my manager. And he basically gave me the introduction to this world of roll-ups and holdcos. And there, it became quite clear to me that I have a niche. So I use my experience at 3Codes to actually teach myself how to be better in managing the finance function at a roll-up. And once I gathered the courage, I decided to start my own financial practice.
Yeah, well, that's very brave to go into the deep world. I did something similar. We've been working in IT for a long time. And I've also learned about the sort of roll-up world as also through Alex and a lot of his content at Rollup Europe. And I think that there is this growing, scene, especially in Europe, of roll-ups. And there's a lot of problems that need to be solved because of that. And I think both of you, both of us think quite similar, where how can we provide value in this space? Because it is so interesting and it's so different every day to day, isn't it? But I saw online you mentioned working with a client who acquired 8 businesses in 12 months. What did you learn from that experience about what makes or breaks a roll-up's finance function?
I think that what does break up a roll-up is, and the lesson I've learned is, it's not the speed, but having like weak financial controls in place. So when you're acquiring that fast, every flaw is showing up. And I guess what makes the difference between what worked and what didn't is two key things. The first one is standardization of processes. So my lesson was make sure you standardize all your chart of accounts, all your reporting KPIs from day one. And then the second thing would be having clear ownership. So someone will own the integration, someone will own the reporting, and a third person is going to own the cash. So when that's unclear, I guess the trust in the numbers will disappear fast. And then management, the people who obviously are running the roll-up, won't have the right information to run their businesses and scale at the pace that they want.
The ownership makes a lot of sense. I think that that's something I've seen as well. If you give each person just their task is to complete this part of the business, it's good. Not, I thought it was that person. I thought it was Bob. I thought it was Pete.
Yeah.
But the part about standardizing processes, I think a lot of roll-ups or holdcos or serial acquirers are always torn about how much to standardize, because on one side, they've bought a business that's working well and is able to produce value, and you don't want to over-standardize every business because maybe you might lose some of that value. Whereas in other cases, you create a lot more value because of the synergies that you can create from the standardization. Like, how do you tackle that thought process and that conversation with operators?
Right. Well, I guess it very much it depends business to business maybe, but I think that there's some key things where the focus very much needs to be on standardization, and that's in finance specifically, because not doing it at the beginning can be one of like the most expensive mistake you do further down the line. The reason why I think standardization in finance is crucial is so you can compare the same KPIs across all of your group and understand what they mean and have the same processes. I cannot always comment on other functions. I think it's important to preserve the legacy. I think it's important to preserve what these founders have built because there's a reason why they've been bought in a way. But when it comes to finance and some of these critical back office functions, it's very much important to bring an unified approach to them. So when you present the data and the information to management, they actually have like a whole view of how their business operates and they can make the right decisions.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So getting that layer of financial processes to be standardized is, to you, very critical. And then there could be other decisions further on, which is maybe on operations. It doesn't all have to be standardized or other things. But you're saying on the financial side, how are you going to continue making decisions on these acquisitions if you don't have the data in the first place?
Yeah, and like if you have one business on one system, the others on the other, they're not following the same revenue recognition process and so on. This doesn't build consistency. That doesn't enable you to properly to have like a good decision making. It doesn't allow to see the business as a whole. It's quite fragmented in my opinion. And when it comes, my favorite topic, to audits, which everyone hates, it's gonna blow up. So suddenly you're trying to reconcile multiple definitions of revenue, margin, expenses across the entities. So, and you're doing it under pressure with like extreme scrutiny. So this should have been a very straightforward process if you in the beginning have had that standardized reporting processes, controls in place to help you run the business smoothly.
Okay. So if you were to distinguish the patterns you see in an operator who consistently integrate well versus those who don't, what are you seeing?
I'm seeing they have like a clear outtake process on what to do first, second, and so on. They set themselves timelines and they make sure that everything is communicated. I guess the ones that are the most successful is the one who communicate quite well with the founders and inform them of all the changes that's going to happen. And they are trying to, on one hand, keep the legacy of that existing business, but also make sure that they improve the processes that they have in place, try to standardize from a finance perspective their reporting and existing processes.
Okay, so a playbook, you're saying essentially they have a standardized playbook to make sure that everything runs smoothly. And then they're also communicating a lot. When you say communication, can you explain more what you mean by that?
I think that once you acquire a business, sometimes there's a friction between, I can only speak from a finance perspective, with the finance function of that acquired team. And they not always want to provide all the information or they're not open to change. So what I think does help a lot is communicating to these people in advance, showing them what the changes are going to be, how you're going to help them, how they're going to improve their workload and things like that. So you can build a very solid relationship. Also going to meet them in person if you have the opportunity also helps, in my opinion. Just keeping them up to date and aware of what's going to change and why, and trying to take the burden away from them as much as possible.
No, that makes sense. There is, I hear countless stories of so many people resisting change, and they're not resisting change for no reason. They're not just trying to be difficult.
Yeah.
They probably have good reasons to do that. They've been working in that business 10, 15 years, and now all these things are changing in a way that they believe doesn't work that way. So identifying those people, communicating clearly, and showing that you're on the same team, right? You're not trying to go against each other. You're on the same team.
Yeah. That's it, basically. Like we are on the same team, and I'm always open to listen to what everyone has to say and why they're doing specific things. And in the end of the day, we can always meet in the middle as long as we make sure that everything works and the data is accurate.
Next question. If you were advising someone about to close their third acquisition, what should they already have in place on the financial side?
So it is exactly what we talk about, is having all these processes in place, making sure they've got the standardized system, reporting and decision making early, and they're clear about, I guess, what stays local and what doesn't. I think the ones who struggle are the ones who keep everything optional and they just wait for the consequence rather than trying to, having the process done in advance. And yeah, I definitely think that it's having that standardization at the beginning, having it all pre-set up, knowing what you do, knowing who does what, and trying to make the integration as smooth as possible by your third acquisition. In a way, it's like, how to say it? Let me think. Maybe it's not about speed, it's about credibility. And you don't have to reinvent things by your third acquisition. You already need to know what to do. You're supposed to have made the mistakes and just try to prevent it by this point and for you to have learned your lessons, maybe. I'm not saying you're not going to make mistakes, but maybe don't reinvent the process. Make sure you have something good in place and standardized.
I love that. And I kind of like thinking about things in a way of, okay, the first 3 acquisitions, this is for you to have created your playbook, learn the mistakes that you've probably going to learn. And then moving forward, now you should have your playbook set, the good communication rules, everyone following a same standardized approach or process. To me, it makes a lot of sense. I'm wondering, so by the third acquisition, maybe it doesn't make sense to have a full-time CFO.
Yeah.
When should a roll-up bring in a fractional CFO? At what stage versus hiring someone full-time?
Yeah. I do agree that it doesn't make sense because it's very expensive to have a full-time CFO, especially that early on. From a fractional CFO perspective, I think it makes sense to do it right when you have signed your first acquisition, but maybe at actually, no, a month before that. So you make sure you've got everything pre-set up in a way for you to integrate that first acquisition, having the right structure of the holdco, having the right systems, where are we going, what systems are the new business is using. So how are we going to integrate that? Are we going to move them to what we currently have, and so on? So I would say fractional CFO, I guess a month before the deal comes in. And then for a full-time, I don't think there's a set number of acquisitions. I guess it's about how much you have grown, what are the requirements, and where are you going. It might be by the 5th, depending on the revenue size, but I don't know, you need to have at least 6 to 7 acquisitions maybe to start building your internal team and having that financial director, CFO in place to help you scale the business even further.
Yeah, I can imagine it's hard to set a rule because some businesses are more complicated than others.
Yeah, exactly.
They'll go maybe at a faster rate of acquisition. So there's lots of variables here. But I found it really interesting what you just said. You said it's not before your second acquisition, it's 30 days before you do the acquisition. So integration doesn't start on day one. It starts beforehand when you're preparing. But can you tell me a little bit what that looks like for you in a standard roll-up integration? You said you start 30 days before, and then can you tell me a little bit about that timeline?
Yeah, so for me, it's very good to familiarize myself with the target, who are we acquiring, just to go through their financial due diligence, what they're using, what the current processes are in place. So I can also plan my work. One thing I've learned from Alex when I was working in 3 Codes is having a 30, 60, 90-day plan. So what I'm trying to do within those days before the acquisition hit is trying in my head to build, okay, what do I need to do within that 90-day framework to make sure everything works as it should. So then before the acquisition comes in, I think it's very important to sit down with management and build the company group chart of accounts. As time progresses, you're going to work on them, improve them, and however, you need to have that initial foundation on which you're going to build. I also try to set up my reporting just to make sure that everything's ready and we can try and reflect the target once it has been acquired. And yeah, I would say having my standardized chart of accounts, my reporting, the system is ready to be preset up for the new acquisition, because sometimes we're going to continue and use their existing accounting software. Sometimes we're going to move them to the group one. And having all these small bits in place really does help you speed up the process of integration, and not just speed it up, but make sure it works and there's no mistakes along the way.
Systems particularly interest me. You know, I'm the IT guy over here. So I have a couple of questions here, but the first
Yeah.
is, what finance systems do you find roll-ups outgrow the most? Is it QuickBooks, Xero, spreadsheets?
Yeah.
And what's usually the first thing that needs replacing?
So I've noticed that in the UK, the go-to system would be Xero. People in the US prefer QuickBooks. And then I think Google Sheets, even I started using Google Sheets a lot because it's quite easy, you know, just to not everyone can have access, but it's easier to go through the audit log and things like that. I guess, yeah, maybe changing your accounting software is one of the first things that comes up. So to make sure everything is aligned across the group, I always advise against having businesses on different systems because it stops you properly maintain your consolidation and provide like consolidated financial statements. And I would say the accounting software is, I think, one of the first things to go. And then if the business have built their own internal revenue system or they use one, this is like one of the another thing that is going to be moved.
Okay. Have you found many UK roll-ups be on ERP systems like NetSuite, or are they usually staying on Xero for a long time?
I've seen only one who has been very mature at the time. They've got 22 businesses acquired when they moved to Sage Intacct. But before that, I haven't seen, I guess the more mature ones do, but I don't work with as big roll-ups and as these. So majority of the companies I work with, they use Xero in the UK or QuickBooks outside of the UK. And I'm a fan of Sage Intacct because it does have a very good intercompany module that will significantly improve my work and saves me a lot of time.
Yeah, I think that's always a discussion that we have, is when is it time to move onto the big ERP systems, because any migration is complicated and takes a while. So
Yeah.
is it a good idea to do early, but then it's a lot more expensive to set up at the beginning, or something you do later? Talking about, you know, expensive mistakes, is what's the most expensive financial mistake you see a roll-up make repeatedly? The one that seems small at the time but becomes a crisis later.
Well, I'm gonna go back to I keep repeating all the time. I think the most expensive mistake I've seen is not standardizing the chart of accounts early. And that again comes back to the audit because it's going to blow up then. And again, you won't be able to reconcile all of the different, I would say, definitions of revenue, margins, expenses across the business. And then you need to do it in a very fast, under a lot of pressure, which adds even more stress to the whole situation. And it will become a crisis. So without having that standardization controls, and your reporting basically becomes inconsistent. And then leadership will start making decisions of numbers that they cannot fully trust.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. It's like, I think that's the most important part of like any finance function, is just trusting the numbers that you're looking at, and then making sure that the decisions that you make are founded on that. Yeah, no, I 100% see where you're coming from there. And on the, sorry, were you going to say something?
I was just going to say that sometimes when founders keep everything as it was and they don't try to bring standardization, that creates a lot of issues for any finance team, not just myself, because you also cannot trust the data as a finance person because you actually don't have full access to it. And when everything's so manual, somebody else does it, you don't oversee it, you don't actually know what stands behind the numbers, creates a lot of issues with the work you're producing yourself or the finance team that's producing.
Yeah, we worked with a roll-up in Spain. I'm based in Barcelona at the moment, and Spain, they tend to be a little bit more old school with how they do things.
Yeah.
And so they acquired a HVAC company, and they had all the accounts in paper, pen and paper. So we had to go in and just copy every single piece of paper just to make sure we weren't missing anything. And then that was a mess. But so yeah, you can imagine these, especially because I think a lot of roll-ups, their strategy is to acquire these companies where, you know, the owner was a founder and he's nearing retirement, And so that person's been running the business for 30 or so years. And so you're coming into like, we've always done it this way and it works for us. But as a roll up, you want more clarity on those numbers.
Yeah.
I want to speak a little bit about, you started PPHF and I saw a video from like the summer, so quite a while ago, where it said that you've gone from 1 client to 10 already, which congratulations, that's amazing.
Thank you.
But you also said that you don't have a day off.
Yes,
so how are you thinking about scaling, without burning out?
Well, I have now started growing my team. We've recently hired like an operation manager that actually is going to take over the operations of the business. I'm now hiring for a full-time accountant to come on board and join us. And the team is going to grow to 4 people, which is, I think, quite incredible. And it's still quite unreal for me because I can't believe that this happened in over 2 years. But to me, the only way I can actually scale and make this business grow is not just me growing up as a professional, learning from my mistakes and trying to deliver better work to my clients, but also having the right people with me. So I cannot do any of my work if it wasn't the people I've been partnering with, working with to get me to the place I am now. And I think that it's the people, the right people. And that's the way for any business to scale.
Is there a specific industry within? I mean, I already know that roll-up is a very niche space, but within there, are you finding yourself naturally working more with a certain type of roll-up than others? Or do they all sort of face, pretty similar problems when it comes to the financial side?
I think most of them come to the same place from the finance perspective. It's sometimes reporting different KPIs, having like different requirements. But I think it always comes the same, I would say. And I don't have a preferred industry or anything like that or type of a roll-up. I guess I just want to help them all. And I just want to make sure that they all work. And I built a great relationship with them because all my clients, they're all wonderful. And it's been a pleasure just working with them and learning from them. Because to me, they're like great leaders. And I actually... When I listen to them, how they make decisions, I try to use the same logic in the way I run my business.
Yeah, such a hack, right? Instead of going to special business schools, you can just sell services to clever people and then you learn from them.
Yeah. Always like, that's what I like. I always like to work with people who are much, much smarter than I am. So I can just learn from them.
Yeah, that's awesome. And then you said that, I heard you mention UK, US split. Where are most of your clients from? Where are they based?
The UK at the moment. I have 2 in the Netherlands, in the US as well, but UK mostly.
No, that's awesome. And if someone wanted to reach out to you, which is the best way to get in contact?
I guess through email. We have a contact form on our website, and also through LinkedIn. It's all been checked regularly. So if whoever wants to get in touch with us, it's a very straightforward process.
Perfect. I'll make sure to leave a link so it's easy to get to you.
Thank you.
I have one last question. Who do you think is one person we need to have on this podcast?
Alex, of course.
Alex?
Yeah.
I'm going to ask him. I have to ask him. I've just been waiting, but I need to get him on. Alex is from the Roll Up Europe community. If anyone's listening, biggest community. I'm sure you already know about it, but if you don't, check it out. But Pavleta, thank you so much for coming on to one of my first podcast episode. I think we both smashed it and definitely a lot of insights learned. So thank you so much, Pavleta.
Thank you for having me. It's been a pleasure.